Hi everyone, I'm Tracy Jacobs, the director of the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at Towson University. Welcome to the Osher preview of spring classes. Today you'll hear from many of our instructors who will tell you about their upcoming spring courses. But first, a few things you need to know. If you want to take a look at the Osher Spring Catalog, please visit www.towson.edu/Osher and click on the Osher Spring Catalog PDF. Registration will be open starting on Tuesday, February 3rd. If you have any questions about registration, please email us at osher@towson.edu. Please be patient as we work to answer everyone's questions. Once registration is open, we strongly encourage you to register online. We will accept mailed-in registrations, but we ask that you email us to let us know that you're sending your registration in by mail. Email osher@towson.edu and indicate the names of the courses that you want to take. Our spring schedule includes both in-person and online classes. Zoom classes will be offered on Mondays and Fridays, and most of the online classes will be recorded, and there is a note if it is not being recorded. On Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, our in-person classes will meet at Edenwald Senior Living in Towson. Please note that none of the in-person classes get recorded. We know that the in-person experience is important to many of you for camaraderie and community, and we're happy to have Edenwald as a cherished community partner. In addition to free parking right across from the building, we appreciate the welcoming atmosphere and the high value that they place on lifelong learning. In between classes, Osher members are able to go to the cafe for coffee, lunch, or snacks. And on Wednesday mornings, there is even a farmer's market right outside the auditorium. Thank you for joining us today. If you're new to Osher, welcome. And if you've been with us for a while, welcome back, and thank you for your continued participation. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the following preview presentations.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there. Well, since I have you, let me tell you a little bit about the class I'm putting together for Towson Osher this March and April, Wednesday afternoons at Edenwald. I call this class Unsung Heroes of Jazz History. Now, I'll let you in on a secret. This class, that title is really just an excuse for me to put together a course where I talk about and play the music of some of my favorite jazz musicians, many of whom are grossly underappreciated to this very day. I'm going to be talking about people like Charlie Christian, the great pioneer of the electric guitar, stride pianists like Willie the Lion Smith, Fletcher Henderson, the black band leader who in the 1920s really developed the big band swing sound, but didn't really get to reap the benefits of its popularity decades later. We'll talk about some wonderful female instrumentalists who were under-recognized and underappreciated in their own day and even today. People like the great pianist, composer, and arranger Mary Lou Williams, the great pianist and musician in her own right, Lillian Harden, who is better known as the second of three Mrs. Louis Armstrongs. So look, we're going to listen to a lot of great music, see some vintage video clips. I'll tell some really fun and entertaining stories, and hopefully it will introduce you to a lot of great music you weren't previously aware of. Of course, I always bring my instruments with me, so it'll be a lot of fun. I hope to see you there. I better get back to practicing.
My name is Emmanuel Abramovitz, and I will be teaching a class called The Search for an American Sound. For many years, great European and American composers had expressed contrasting opinions on how Americans would develop its own sound. Then a fantastic, diverse generation of composers of classical music, Broadway shows, Hollywood scores, followed parallel paths, creating a sound that is identified with these lands and these people. With plenty of audiovisuals and musical examples, we'll be part of this fantastic journey that has not ended yet. So see you soon online.
Hello, friends. It's Michael Saltzman again, and we will be having a 4-week course about how 2 exhibits brought modern and contemporary art to America for the first time. The first 2 Mondays will be devoted to the 1913 New York Armory Show, which brought European art to America. The year 1913 was more than the unofficial start of the 20th century. It was a high point in both European and American cultural innovation. Within just a few weeks, 3 American artists and the photographer, Alfred Stieglitz, in the background, brought the historic exhibition of the Armory Show to New York with the first major experiences of Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, Fauvism, Cubism, and the first completely abstract paintings and sculptures. The show contains some of the most advanced paintings and artists like Cézanne, Matisse, Picasso, and Duchamp. Its most radical feature was that the show itself was filled with ambition, foresight, and appreciation of developments that have yet to be duplicated. The 3rd and 4th weeks will be dedicated to a very different show made 55 years later from the Armory, When Attitudes Become Form. This was held in Bern, Switzerland in 1969 and designed by a single person, the young curator Harold Zeeman, who believed in creating art from concepts and ideas without significant use of paintings. In point of fact, almost all of the art was made on site by conceptual and post-minimal artists and object makers. The techniques and ideas of museum curators and artists were changed forever. As Lawrence Weiner famously said, an artist may construct the work may be fabricated, and the work need not be built. Some of these artists included Joseph Beuys, Richard Serra, Richard Long, and Bruce Nauman, names you may not be familiar with, who changed the course of art and how Duchamp was the grandfather. I look forward to being with you in March.
Greetings, everybody. My name's Steve Dembo, and I am going to be lecturing on great women photographers. This will be part 2 of a 2-part series. There's no need to take part 1. We're just going to introduce some interesting women photographers. This class meets on Wednesday at 9:30 a.m., and that would be at Edenwald. The course will kind of bring us up to date with some familiar names and some unfamiliar names. We're talking about Dorothy Lang, Bernice Abbott, Lee Miller, and more. We'll talk about Diane Arbus, Vivian Mayer, Cindy Sherman, Sally Mann, Annie Leibovitz, and quite a few others, some of whom I've never heard of, and you may not have heard of either, but we'll still talk about them and introduce them. This is not really a history of women photographers. I will definitely talk a little bit about that and give you some ideas of where you can find more information and recommend some readings and things like I do in all my classes. But it's more of a survey of women photographers, mostly in 20th century, early 20th century and on. So I think you'll enjoy it. It's interesting. We'll see a lot of photographs, especially from some once well-known photographers, women photographers, and then recently forgotten or recently resurrected. And of course, again, some very well-known photographers. So again, we'll be seeing a lot of images. This is part 2. It takes place in April, 9:30 a.m. That's Wednesdays, and I hope to all attend. It should be a lot of fun. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
I started to think about what might be the difference between some of the world's greatest female characters in theater written by men and what are the differences once female playwrights take over. So that's going to be the focus of this semester's version of 8 Plays Everyone Should Know. We're going to look at 3 classics with focal female characters, Medea, Hedda Gabler, and Major Barbara. And then we're going to look at some contemporary female playwrights' works, including Night Mother by Marcia Norman, Intimate Apparel by Lynn Nottage, Trifles by Susan Glaspell, and The Children by Lucy Kirkwood. And just to lighten things up a little bit, we're also going to take a look at Auntie May. As always, I will send out copies of the script for you to read in advance, but you don't have to. I will send links to some videos where they are available of the plays, but you don't have to look at them. And hopefully, I will promise once again to pepper our classes not only with lively discussion and some sense of perspective about each play's place in theater history, but I will also invite some of the area's most talented actors to come in and perform some of the scenes live in front of us when they're available. So I hope you'll join us. I think it's going to be a great 8 weeks, and I look forward to seeing some of my old acquaintances and meeting new people as well. So please join me for 8 Plays Everyone Should Know.
Hi there, my name is Makita Brotman. I'm a literature professor at MICA, and I'm also a psychoanalyst. And my spring course is entitled Our Dogs, Ourselves, Dogs in Literature, Myth, History, and Life. And I'm a late life dog lover myself. I didn't get my first dog until I was about 40. And since then, I've kind of become obsessed with dogs, not just personally, but in terms of psychology and also in terms of history. So in this course, we're going to be looking at how dogs have enriched the lives of poets, philosophers, kings, psychologists, writers, and others, both notables and ordinary people. Why are themes and motifs about dogs so universally consistent between cultures? Do we train and choose our dogs in our own image? Why are we warned against loving our dogs too much? How have certain stereotypes developed about certain kinds of dogs and their owners? How are our feelings about our dogs deeply rooted in culture, folklore, and myth? So in each of the 4 classes, we'll look at certain pairings of dogs and their owners, mostly well-known owners from literature, history, art, folklore, and philosophy, again, covering a broad span of history and geography. And I'm going to talk about how the way we think about our dogs is infinitely revealing. How people name their dogs, create personalities for them, speak on their behalf, even from the way they pick up after them. All of these things are infinitely revealing about ourselves. So this course will address how much dogs have to teach us about empathy, anxiety, joy, happiness, and what it means to be human. So if you have a dog, if you used to have a dog, if you're planning to get a dog, or if you have any interest at all in dogs, I think you'll enjoy this course.
My name is Joseph Moeller, and this spring I will be teaching a course called Robert Frost in His Poetry. We're only going to have 4 classes in March, so I've made a decision that instead of doing a whole slew of poems, I think it would be much more advantageous to take one poem of Robert Frost and delve into it dive right in deep. And that way, by exploring one of his poems in a very in-depth way, we will be able to get a flavor of what this man's all about. So that's the decision I've made. Now, the poem that we're going to look at and explore in detail is called Directive, and is considered Robert Frost's greatest last poem. So, it was he didn't publish his he didn't even publish his first book of poetry until he was in his 40s. It took him 20 years to get his first book published, but Then 20, 30 years later is when he wrote the poem Directive. Now, one thing I would like to say, if you are thinking about taking this class, which I hope you are, I think you're going to really enjoy it, and you go ahead and download the poem Directive, make a copy of it and read it, don't get frustrated and say, wow, I have no idea what he's talking about. Every time I read one of his poems, I have no idea what he's talking about. It takes hours and hours and hours to really get inside of it and try to see what he's talking about. So what I'm saying is, please don't get frustrated. If you're thinking about taking the course, you download the poem, you read the poem, and it just seems absolutely unintelligible, that's perfectly fine. Because it's my job to try to take all that gobbledygook of what he's talking about and try to make sense of it. And it's a fun process. Now, one more thing I'd like to say about the course is that the course will be done in a dynamic kind of dialogue fashion where I ask a lot of questions and I get responses from you. It's not just me standing up there lecturing. It's going to be back and forth, back and forth. So I really hope you will give this thing a go, and can't wait to see you in March. Thank you.
Hello, my Osher friends. I'm Ed Fothergill, and the title of the course I'll be teaching this spring is called Aesthetics. The Encyclopedia Britannica defines aesthetics as the philosophical study of beauty, taste, and art. Now, aesthetics is a perplexing philosophical topic. Why? It's because each of us knows what beauty is. We really do. Normally, philosophy is about the quest for what we don't know. And yet with aesthetics, we're talking about what we do know. Allow me to clarify the problem. I know what beauty is. I know a beautiful painting when I see it. I know a beautiful poem when I read it. I know a beautiful symphony when I hear it. I know what beauty is. And yet what I know is beautiful will be vociferously denied by others. This obvious truth begs the following questions. Is beauty an absolute reality? Is there a universal beauty that we can all agree upon? Or is beauty simply a subjective state of mind that gives us pleasure? In this course, we will ponder these questions under the guidance of several distinguished philosophers and artists, including Plato, Augustine, Hegel, Kant, Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, and Wassily Kandinsky and Igor Stravinsky. If you're interested in such matters, I hope to see you in the spring, and thank you for your consideration.
Hi, I'm Bob Baer. In the spring, I'll be teaching Great Civilizations of the Ancient Near East. The ancient Near East is known today by many names, such as the Fertile Crescent, Cradle of Civilization, and Mesopotamia, or the land between the rivers. Regarded as the oldest civilization on Earth, the region encompasses the modern countries of Iraq and Syria, as well as parts of Turkey, Iran, Lebanon, and Israel. This course will explore the significant influences that ancient Near Eastern civilizations have played in the development of Western culture, including law, literature, architecture, art, agriculture, mathematics, medicine, astronomy, technology, religion, and philosophy. These will include the regions of many of the world's first, the first cities, the first system of writing, the first legal systems, and the first epic literature. This period saw the rise of powerful empires and cultures like that of the Sumerians, Babylon, the Assyrians, and Persia. The course will further explore the role that archaeology played in the discovery of these civilizations that were mostly unknown until the mid 19th century. So I hope you can join me.
When we think of geography, we often focus on where things are located. But the more important question is why they are located there. Geography is not about regurgitating random facts or excelling in Jeopardy. Geography examines how places are connected, how people and environments interact, and considers the consequences of the choices we make, or in some cases, fail to make. Hello, my name is Michael Allen, and I'm an associate professor of geography at Towson University. And this spring, I'll be teaching a multi-week course where we aim to unpack Maryland's geography. When we think about the old Lion State, we each have a different account, a different perspective. Some of my perspectives are behind me about the place that we call home. We know the places, St. Mary's, Havre de Grace, Cecil County, or Hoy Crest. Some of these places are familiar to you, while others may be new. We know some of the people, the Calverts, Harriet Tubman, Thurgood Marshall. We know about the stories of the school teacher, the nurse, the advocate, or maybe the slave. We each have the stories of exploring the Chesapeake Bay, of hiking the mountains in Western Maryland, or maybe tilling the agricultural fields of the Piedmont. Connecting place, in the past, in the present, and the future, makes Maryland home. This multi-week course explores the stories, connections, and communities that make Maryland unique. I'm excited to share some of these fascinating geographies with you, and I hope to challenge each of you to see the world a little bit differently, through the local lens to the global lens, through interaction, storytelling, and exploration. I hope you'll consider joining us this April as we try to unpack Maryland's geography from mountains to marshes.
Hello, my name is Peter Levy, and I'm excited to invite you to join me this spring for a course that's very dear to my heart, the Civil Rights Movement in Maryland. For decades, when people think about the Civil Rights Movement, they think about Montgomery, Birmingham, and Selma, Alabama, and the Mississippi Delta. But the fight for racial equality didn't take place just in the Deep South. It happened right here in communities across Maryland. Over 8 weeks, we'll explore the powerful and often overlooked stories of Marylanders who helped shape the modern civil rights movement. You meet figures like Lily Mae Carroll Jackson, Carl Murphy, Pauli Murray, and Walter Lively, along with countless students and community activists whose courage changed the course of history. We'll begin in the 1930s when 2 horrific lynchings on the Eastern Shore galvanized activists and laid the groundwork for a new era of organizing. We'll look at how World War II transformed the struggle for equality, and we'll dive into the legal brilliance of Thurgood Marshall and the political mastery of Clarence Mitchell, 2 Baltimore natives who helped dismantle Jim Crow in the courts and in Congress. And we'll explore the wave of direct action protest that swept across Maryland in the 1950s and 60s to challenge segregation in everyday life. One of our sessions will focus on Gloria Richardson and the Cambridge movement, and we'll also look at the rise of Black power and white backlash. Finally, we'll connect the past to the present by examining how the Holy Week uprisings of 1968, which followed Martin Luther King's assassination, and the Freddie Gray revolt of 2015, using oral histories, images, and maps, and your own memories to understand how these events continue to shape Maryland today. This course isn't just about history. It's about understanding the ongoing struggle for justice in our own backyards. I hope you'll join with me as we uncover the stories, the voices, and the movements that made Maryland a vital part of America's civil rights journey. I look forward to seeing you in class.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jack Burkert. I do Baltimore history programs, and I'll be joining you at the Osher Institute beginning March 3rd for a series of 8 sessions that will talk about Baltimore history from the perspective of the many, many diverse industries that worked in Baltimore, operated in Baltimore, the employees there, how the employees lived, what the industries did, jobs, lifestyles, all of those things about Baltimoreans in primarily beginning of the 19th century and well into the 20th century. Our topics will include things like shipbuilding, one of Baltimore's mainstays, the Port of Baltimore, the amazing canning industry that took place, oysters and vegetables, that kind of thing. Steel industry, Bethlehem Steel, Sparrows Point. The story of the B&O Railroad, going to condense that down to about an hour and 15 minutes, the entire history of the railroad in a very, very short period of time. Next up, how electricity came to Baltimore. Boy, did that change lifestyles. Radio also changed lifestyles. They're kind of linked together. And then finally, the last session, all about feeding Baltimore. Where does the food come from? How does it get on the market and in the bellies of the Baltimoreans? So it's a real big perspective about the history of Baltimore and how the industries and the people interacted to make it an energetic, wonderful place. That's my story. We'll begin on March 3rd. I hope you can join us. I'll be looking forward to seeing you there and then. Bye now.
Hi, I'm Bill Barry, and I'm glad to be coming back to Osher for the second set of classes starting in April 9th. And we're going to be talking about the 1930s and today. And in this tumultuous times, we see history gives us both precedents and parallels. And we can look at the two most dynamic presidents in the last 100 years and how they dealt with things. It's a new definition of power, of executive power, of the Constitution, of concerns about the Supreme Court. We're going to look at two presidents who were incredible media stars and how they developed their own ways of communicating with the country. We're going to look at legislation which was passed in the 30s, which is still relevant and unfortunately controversial today. One of them is the Social Security Act, which is certainly near and dear to all our hearts. We're going to look at the Fair Labor Standards Act and how child labor has become an issue. We're going to look at immigration. We're going to look at federal support for the arts. We're going to look at the opposition to both Franklin Roosevelt and to Trump. We're going to look at issues like the Tennessee Valley Authority and public power. We're going to look at issues like taxing the rich and what income tax rates are proper. It's all in all an issue of federal power, presidential power, and the future of the country. So I look forward to seeing you there. And if you have any questions, please contact us. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Barbara Resson, and I will be teaching Espionage in Heels this spring. Female spies, a breed unto themselves, but tragically a footnote in our United States war history. If I asked you to name one female spy, many of you could not do so. Many of you might name Mata Hari. She's the most well-known woman spy. And you probably couldn't tell me which side she was for or against. Well, you'll have to wait to take my course to find out about Mata Hari and many other female spies. You'll discover the Civil War spies that were for the Confederacy and the Union. You'll meet the spies from World War I that risked their lives in the name of patriotism. And of course, you'll learn about the extraordinary women who spied for the United States on foreign soil and their counterparts who were just as brave with their resistance efforts. There are over 27 women that I will talk about in this course. They came from many countries and all walks of life. Some survived and lived long, fulfilling lives. Others either died in concentration camps or where they were shot at firing squads or other means of torture that created a fatal ending. But one of the most decorated and bravest of the Second World War was born in Baltimore County, Maryland. She even went to Roland Park Country Day School. She used different disguises, was very elusive, and even had one famous German officer put out posters of her face to catch her. She was called the Limping Lady. She worked in Europe and other areas involved in the war, crossed the snow-covered peaks across the Pyrenees to escape the Nazis. And she did all this with one leg and a prosthetic attached to her body with waist straps, a remarkable feat by any standard, but one done over 60 years ago when prosthetics were not what they are today. She was bravery personified, and she's buried right here in Druid Ridge Cemetery in Pikesville. You will learn all about her when you take my course. What possessed the women I'll be talking about to take part in some of the most dangerous and life-threatening tasks? What inspired them to leave their conventional roles, and at especially this time in our lives when they were expected to basically get married, have children, and stay at home? We'll discuss all the possible answers to that question. Many of these women were very young, some were older, some even had children. I hope to see you in the spring. Happy New Year, stay safe and warm.
My name is Dan Sutton. I spent about 25 years of my life working as a special agent criminal investigator for the United States government, and for a good portion of that time I was working in various undercover roles. I invite you to join me as I go over both the high points and the low points of my life as an undercover agent. How I got there and how I left there. It's a story of survival. Come along with me on this journey and you'll hear and learn about the who, what, where, when, how, and why of undercover work. Though I warn you now, do not attempt to do this at home. I promise you'll be educated and enlightened, but I think you'll also be entertained and riveted as I take you along with me into undercover meetings with the bad guys, to go where no one's been before. And there's no need to take my word for it, for as Tom Brokaw, NBC's anchor, said when he was introducing one of my cases as that night's lead story, Tom said, "This case has more international intrigue than a John Le Carré novel." Well, now I've decided, after all this time, to come out of the shadows and to take you with me on what was a scary but always interesting many years long roller coaster ride. That was my existence 24/7 while doing my job in the pursuit of justice and seeking the truth as I navigated my way through a treacherous world of smoke and mirrors, of deception and lies. Join me this spring, if you dare, for my lecture series, Undercover, at the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute.
Hi, everybody. My name is Doug Pasternak, and I will be teaching democracy, corruption, and public accountability in the spring session at Towson University. I've spent my entire career in the public accountability community, first as an investigative reporter and later running investigative teams on 3 separate congressional committees. This class will delve into the history of oversight and public accountability in America. It will examine both historic cases, recent cases, and cases that I've personally investigated as well. The public accountability community today is under attack like no time in the history of America. This class will be educational, entertaining, at times it may be enraging, but it will be critically important to understanding how we hold public officials and private executives accountable to the people. I hope that you all join me in the spring, and I really look forward to seeing you then.
Hi, all. I am Jody Johnson, a honeybee research scientist, and I am the class coordinator for the Conservation of Species class. In class 1, we'll look at bee conservation, which is complex because bees are environmental samplers. Humankind has done no service to them by introducing land use changes, pesticides, and invasive species, often which vector new viruses, all of which overwhelm honeybee health. The second class will be taught by Pierce Johnson. He's a biology teacher in Charlottesville. He takes students out to study freshwater mussel populations in local creeks. He says that many of the species there are foundational, but all of the mussel species vacillate for a variety of reasons. He thinks that education and research are the best tools to mitigate loss. In class 3, Mike McClure is an elephant expert who originally trained at the Maryland Zoo and now works internationally. He travels to elephant populations in East Africa and to Asian populations in Nepal to mitigate human-elephant conflict. In class 4, I will discuss Dion Fossey and Jane Goodall, two primatologists. Dion is an American who studied mountain gorillas in Rwanda before she was murdered. And Jane Goodall is a British citizen who studied chimpanzees in Tanzania. I think Osher wanted me to talk about these two women because I do work conserving elephants using honeybees in Tanzania. And I share with these primatologists their gender, their outsider status in Africa, and their experiences of field-based work in remote places. We'd love it if you'd join us.
Hi, I'm Shelley Bonus, and I am the instructor for New Ideas in Cosmology, Astronomy, and Space Exploration. We're learning almost everything that we learned at the beginning all over again in a new way. We are discovering new things. And so this is part of the reason that I think doing a class like this and taking a class like this is so exciting. I never use the term believe. This is not something we believe. Science is an ever-evolving intellectual pursuit, and we will reconfirm or completely change what we think based on the new technologies and theories that we develop over time. We don't know where the universe came from, right? We don't know if there was a beginning. Was there something before there was nothing? We don't know. We're studying this, and it's very interesting. So now we think maybe there were multiverses, and then there was cosmic inflation, and from cosmic inflation arrived the Big Bang, and then the rest of the process of the universe. We're going to be talking about that in the class. It's really an exciting time. So my goal for students who choose to take this class, first of all, is to have fun and to be inspired, trying to find answers to questions that we still have no idea about. It's the chicken and the egg kind of questions that we're trying to solve here, meaning what came first, multiverses, black holes, cosmic inflation, or the Big Bang? And to give you a kind of conversational understanding of the expanding universe, about black holes, about planets and what we call exoplanets, which are planets orbiting stars other than the sun, and also an introduction to a new kind of astronomy that is called multi-messenger astronomy, for which we study gravitational waves. This is a fun class. It's an exciting class. It's a class that will, I hope, make your heart pump fast and make you ask questions and talk to each other and look up, because we are the certain animal that can actually look up and see the sky. Our heads tilt back. That's amazing. It's amazing to be alive in this day and time. I hope to see you on Zoom. I hope that you will Zoom to me and take this class and have the kind of fun that I have to learn about who we are, where we came from, and maybe where we're going. See you around.
In this coming spring, I will be teaching again the class called Topics on AI and Other Modern Technologies. I taught that class this past fall, basically with the idea that I had already taught a class that exclusively was on AI, and I wanted to touch on AI, but also perhaps include some other modern technologies that might be of interest. I plan to do that again. Of course, what happened last time was out of the 4 classes, 3 were taken by AI, which is not surprising because it is something that is evolving so fast, and it's sort of a very pervasive in our lives, and it's everywhere. So there's clearly a lot to talk about and a lot of questions that were generated in the class. Because of that, we only had 1 class to dedicate to perhaps mentioning other technologies. Some of the feedback as usual, is sort of mixed. Some people liked the fact that there was a lot of discussion and questions. Others would have preferred that I dedicated a bit more time to the topics that I covered on the last class. So I'm going to try to find the balance next time. I think discussing AI will still take 2 full classes because I cannot escape covering some of the basics, like its origins, a little bit about how it works, how it got to be what it is today. Some of you that have taken AI class from me before might find that repetitive, but I do not know who is in the class, so I had to assume that some people might be new and need to know a little bit of the covering that initial part. And then from that point, the questions might decide what direction we go as far as what aspect of AI we emphasize, whether it's the social implications, their ethical questions, the problems, the positive good things. Clearly, we cannot cover all of AI. It's essentially impossible. After that, I hope to try to work a little bit on some other technologies, probably discussing 3D printing, which is a technology that has evolved a lot and has a lot of good benefits. Perhaps some applications, maybe medical or otherwise, of AI, or some other discoveries in materials and things like that are very interesting. There's a few other technologies that perhaps are not as flashy as AI that I hope to cover in the last 2 classes. So I hope you can join me then, and thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Emily Kearns, and I welcome you and invite you to join us for this coming session 2 course called Living Well with Cognitive Challenges. We will meet Friday mornings virtually from 9:30 to 10:45, starting April 10th, running through May 1st. Our sessions will include how to notice the signs and symptoms of cognitive changes, what to do once we notice them in terms of getting resources to assess what's going on, and most importantly, once we notice changes, how can we respond to them in terms of brain health research that suggests that in addition to potentially getting medication and medical health, we can also change our lifestyles so that we can support our well-being better. So I look forward to you joining us. This is based on my work as the coordinator for Dementia-Friendly Baltimore County at Baltimore County Department of Aging. And most of my work entails going out into the community, doing public health educations around cognitive changes, around dementia, noticing signs and symptoms, also communication tips, accessing resources for the individual, with the individual living with cognitive challenges, but also for their care team, their families, friends, and neighbors, with the ultimate goal of all of us living the life we choose, experiencing a sense of well-being, experiencing brain health and working on that, so that we can stay in community and age in community with a sense of confidence and joy. So looking forward to you joining us. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me at dementiafriendly@baltimorecountymd.gov. Thank you.